All right, so we're back with the second half of chapter 2.2. So we're looking at the demographic transition model, understanding why population growth varies in different areas at different times. So this kind of helps to describe the factors that lead to country populations either growing or shrinking and the reasons behind that. Now again, we're not looking at any real specifics yet. We're just looking again more at the general understandings for what outside or internal factors would help lead to experience growth or decline. Now, again, it doesn't exactly always explain a lot of cultural factors that play into it, but it does explain for a lot of more economic factors that make a massive transition in here. All right, so this is what we're going to kind of look at. Again, we'll cover this again in class. This one is very, really important, so that's why we're going to cover this in class. We'll do some practice with it as well. All right, so all countries experience or experienced changes in their accrued birth rate, death rates, and natural increase rates at different times and rates. Important to study to understand if the world becomes overpopulated and why, or why it might become underpopulated. So the demographic transition is the process in society's population changing from really high accrued birth rates and death rates with low natural increase rates, because the birth rates and death rates are really, really high, but they're about even. There's no real actual increase, shifting to a low accrued birth rate, death rate, and natural increase rate, but a higher total overall population shown in 4 stages, and we'll talk more towards the end of the chapter about a potential 5th one. So how and why does this shift occur? So one thing to really consider here, and we'll jump at that real quick, but I want to show you this again, that for most of human history, we never really grew that much in terms of a population. All right, we did not reach 1 billion, and even so, it slowly increased. We kind of see a couple million here, a couple million there. It goes up, it goes down. Nothing really makes a massive difference until we get to that Industrial Revolution. So for much of human history, almost all countries and societies are stuck very much so within kind of really big stage 1, beginnings of stage 2. It's only more modern times where we actually jump ourselves into those different stages. So how and why does this shift occur? So here is the demographic transition, and we'll break it up and kind of talk more about this stage by stage. So visually, here's what we're looking at. Birth and death rates per every 1,000 people per year within a given country. So at the beginning, you have a low total population, whatever this number is. Okay, it's just kind of random numbers up here. But you have a really, really high death rate, really, really high birth rate that's indicated here in the gray, death rate in the black, and then your natural increase is the space in between. And so when you have really, really high death rates matching your birth rates, you're not going to see a massive transition in terms of your population. It's just not going to really grow, if at all. All right, because again, life expectancy is typically really, really low at this end. I think this is your hunter-gatherer stages of society. There's not a whole lot of expectancy of people making it really past 40 or 50 years old. And many infants die very much while they are really, really young. Very few make it to adulthood, again, due to disease, due to shortages of food. But also, you also get a lot of people dying as a result of childbirth. So a lot of factors kind of lead into this. And then when we start to see this in stage 2, we begin to see that population expand, birth rates remain high, death rate decreases, and you kind of see this continuing and continuing until the birth rates start to fall off in stage 4. So in stage 2 and 3, we see that natural increase going up, and the population, as the natural increase is still declining, but you still have a higher birth rate than death rate and people living longer, it begins to slow down. So we see the reverse at this end, and we'll talk stage 5 again, like I said, at the end of the chapter. So in stage 1, again, that low growth stage or almost no growth stage, you have high birth rates, high death rates, almost no natural increase. So when you could easily get food, birth rates would increase, but when you struggle to find food, death rates would increase. There's no real medicine to speak of, so that doesn't exactly help in terms of illness and survival rates. All right, there's no country in society really in stage 1 today, but most of human history, as I said previously, is done in this stage. All right, so lack of food, lack of adequate or any medical care in reality is kind of the reasons for why we see such really high death rates. Okay, so stage 2, high growth. Okay, this is where we see that rapid decrease in the crude death rate, but the crude birth rate remains really, really high, leading to a massive jump in the natural increase rate, where you're seeing, really high total fertility rates remain, birth rates remain really high, but the death rate has now dropped. All right, so this hits Europe and North America first in the 17 and 1800s when you talk about the Industrial Revolution and the diffusion of manufactured goods leading to a lot of wealth. Now, this is also happening in other places around the world as well, including India and China throughout history, but it's, again, very, very slow, and it's not until, again, we see the Industrial Revolution and we see more medicines enter the area that we begin to see more stable growth, and then obviously that big drop in that death rate leading to, again, the expansion of the natural increase rate. So that increase of wealth is kind of what kickstarts more people being able to afford more food, better medical care, better medical training, better housing, all these things that can account for longer lifespans and fewer people dying as a result of childbirth and, dying of malnutrition and disease. All right. So Stage 2 will then hit the rest of the world around, the middle of the 1900s. All right, so we're thinking about following outside World War II when the rest of the other countries, again, in Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, or Africa in general, South America, South America kind of already hit that. But again, Asia and Africa really take off on this during this time as we also begin to diffuse medical revolution technologies and techniques, particularly vaccines, and better medical care and better access to said care from developed countries in Europe and the United States, leading to, again, their drops in death rates, but the birth rates remain high. And also eliminates many traditional causes of death, think cholera, smallpox, all right, things that could still obviously come back, but for the most part have been exterminated or extinguished to the point where it's not a big threat in the world as long as it's still taken care of. Then we get to stage 3. That is the decreasing growth. All right, and so you can kind of see that I'm using certain countries here. This thing called the population pyramid we'll come back to in another video, but kind of indicating that Nigeria is kind of in this high growth rate. A lot of people born in these lower levels, not a lot of elderly people, okay, because the death rate, while it's dropping, there's still not a whole lot of people at these lower rungs making really high within their life expectancy. Chile is a country kind of on that decreasing growth in stage 3. Okay, so crude birth rate and crude death rates decline, and then as the crude birth rate, as the crude death rate is starting, crude birth rate is starting to decline, still above, still more people being born than people dying, the natural increase rate slows. It doesn't go negative or hit 0. It's just slowing down, kind of like what we saw in the globe in the United States or in the world in the previous video. We still have a high natural increase rate, or still the globe is growing because, a lot of other countries are still doing it, but the growth itself globally has slowed down massively. Okay, so societal and economic changes lead to that decline in the birth rate. All right, so it's not that we need as many kids anymore. Okay, not as many people are dying in childbirth or dying before they reach adulthood. More people are likely to survive to adulthood. They're living longer. More people are now living in rural areas than in farm areas, so you don't need as many people working on the family farm to support the family. You have other means in order to do that. So less farming means more people have more time to do other sorts of activities and other ways of earning income and wealth. Okay, so you don't need as many kids to survive, and there's less room in urban areas to support large families. So think most houses and apartments do not sit a family of 5, 6, 7 people. Some can. There's no question about that. But most of these places do not do that. All right. And again, because there aren't as many kids anymore, or there's not as a growing demand for kids, or growing need or want or desire, we begin to see again that drop off. All right. So then we get low growth. So this is Japan 2014, and this is also connected a little bit into stage 5, and we'll talk about again near the end of the chapter. This occurs when the crude birth rate and death rate are about equal. So it's what we call low growth or zero population growth, or ZPG. Okay, you still need that total fertility rate of 2.1 to replace every single person in the country. Okay, because 2.1, there's a chance that someone might not make it to adulthood, so you have to have 2.1 kids, even though you don't produce 0.1 of a kid. Some people have more than more than 2 to replace every single person. So most of our stage 4 countries are in Europe. Okay, you also get examples of this, like we said, within Japan and a few other countries, but for the most part, this is Europe in a nutshell. So reasons for declining birth rates, found more in section 4 of the chapter. I don't know why it says FF there. But anyway. Education. As women are earning more and getting a better education, they're in more control of their lives and more control of the finances. And many women decide to put off having kids in order to pursue work that they really enjoy, and that, again, we'll talk more about this in class, but again, there might be some things that, they do not want to put off in terms of jobs or things that they really want to enjoy. And so they might want to have kids later in life, and fewer kids, if any at all. That's more of a choice that women have had ever now than ever in the past. All right. Lower infant deaths mean that more are surviving. So you don't need to have as many kids because, again, more of them are going to, survive to adulthood. All right. And then there's the use in education and the spread of birth control that, again, empower both women but also other cultures as well, that lead to, again, the reduction of the number of births. All right. So these factors kind of help explain the slowing of growth in stage 3, but then the low growth in stage 4. And then there are countries that have laws or had laws. The China one-child policy no longer is in existence, but having the one-child policy limiting families to one kid per family, all right, in order to slow down the growth, because China was growing at such rapid numbers in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s that they were like, hey, whoa, we're going to have too many kids and we're not going to be able to support our economy and society. So they tried to implement that, and we'll talk more about that in class too. So that's to hopefully kind of explain said transition within the model here, for the reasons why we see that natural increase rate go up, natural increase rate increase, total population increase, and then slowing down, and then maybe a little bit of a decline, but also reasons why birth rates stay high, death rates go down, and then birth rates follow as well. All right, so yeah, and again, it doesn't always follow with the education piece, because India is a highly educated country and workforce, but many Indian people are Hindu and Muslim, or Muslim, not and both religions do not really allow for the use of contraceptives. Now, that's slightly changing. So a place like India that is very much very well educated, you don't necessarily see that because family is really, really important, but also there are other societal pressures from religion and from other parts of society and culture that do not necessarily advocate for birth control or, sex education. So again, that kind of changes obviously over time with governmental policies and views within culture and within religion. But that also can help explain why a country like India is still growing and growing and growing. Well, here's China. Here's that massive growth. And we see the cut down of the one-child policy. Their numbers are decreasing. All right. So we're going to do a few activities with this in class, and then we'll also talk more about, obviously, the one China thing, and then also India as well. So we'll stop it here. But again, if you got questions about the DMT, this, class time will be perfect, or those Wednesdays as well.